Take a big, slow, deep breath in through your nose, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4. Now slowly exhale and push that breath and all the stress and tension out of your body. 4, 3, 2, 1. That calm you're feeling right now? That's what you get with HubSpot. Their all-on-one customer platform replaces the chaos of all those random tools you're using now with a single, powerful platform for all your teams. Get everyone on the same frequency and boost output. Take care of the tedious stuff with AI-powered tools, generate better leads for marketing, close more deals for sales, and earn more 5-star reviews for service. So don't hold your breath. Enjoy the zen that HubSpot brings to growing your business. Visit HubSpot.com to learn more today. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Monday, June 10th. I'm Jon Weidell here with Carly Baker, and this is the Hustle Daily Show. The Las Vegas Sphere first started putting on concerts in 2023 and has since become a huge attraction. The 17,500 seat venue is filling up with every performance and is on the cutting edge of live entertainment. So, what does $2.3 billion in a Sphere do for the concert experience? And are pricey experiential events taking over the entire live entertainment industry? We'll answer those questions with the help of Carly Baker, who does audience development for HubSpot podcasts, including this one. She actually went to investigate the Sphere for herself at 2 Dead & Co. concerts, 3 U2 shows, and a movie. But before that, let's give you the hits and headlines in business and tech. Starting us off, the U.S. saw 272,000 new jobs added in May, beating estimates. The unemployment rate also rose from 3.9% to 4%, which is the highest in 2 years. Next, Google's AI overviews will be telling fewer people to eat rocks and put glue on their pizza for now. One analysis shows the search upending new tech rolled out on 84% of queries last month, but is only appearing on 15% of results these days. Over to the retail, TJX, which operates TJ Maxx, Home Goods, and Marshalls, some of my favorites, said it will start using body cameras for some employees in its retail stores to prevent theft. Sticking in retail, Ikea is hiring 10 people at $17 an hour to work at Coworker Game, which is a virtual Roblox store where users can browse furniture and experience what working at Ikea would be like. Sounds very Swedish. And finally, a New York woman is suing Cold Stone Creamery after learning that its pistachio ice cream contains no pistachios, adding to a trend in lawsuits against alleged false advertising in food that we've been seeing lately. All right, today we're talking about the Las Vegas Sphere, what it's like inside, how it pulls together a performance, and if it's the future of experiential live entertainment. Here to chat with me about all those points is the listener acquisition lead at HubSpot, Carly Baker. Welcome, Carly, making your first appearance. Love it.
Yes, thank you. Good to see you, John, and really excited to share some thoughts from what I'm titling myself as HubSpot's Sphere expert.
Yes, you are a Sphere veteran. You've gone to so many shows. I only thought until the other day that you just went to one and you chimed in with, no, I've been to like 6.
Yes.
So great place to start here. So first, just to start us off, for anybody who hasn't been to the Sphere, can you describe your most recent experience there and just what it's like being there?
Gosh, it's really hard to put into words, but I think one of the things that really stands out is just the experience of getting into the Sphere. If you've been into a concert in the last 10 years, you know how frustrating it is to even just get into the venue, to park, to walk in, to go through security, all of those things. And one of the first things that I've noticed that I don't actually think is an anomaly since I've gone a couple of times and had this experience is it really is the most seamless audience experience I've ever had.
Really?
I am a musician myself. I've performed at many venues. I've been to many venues. And what stands out the most is just the attention to detail in the actual audience experience. And this sort of looks like a couple of different things, right? It looks like the fact that there's no lines to get in when you're trying to initially enter the venue. It looks like a seamless security experience. It looks like bathrooms that have 40 stalls. It looks like 4 to 5 food and drink vendors on every single floor. It looks like security presence, all of these different types of things. It's just so rare to enter a venue and to have a good experience from the start, just not even sort of taking into account the music or the act itself, like the actual operations of the venue really stand out compared to anything I've seen.
So the operations sound pretty incredible. Getting in, getting out. It's really close to like the center of Las Vegas, the Strip. So in terms of the actual concert, right? You get in, you find your seat, you sit down. Then what happens? Of course, I've seen videos of this whole thing, but I feel like actually being there, completely different experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the case of both U2 and Dead & Company, you come in and the sphere is turned on, for lack of a better word. So you are seeing some sort of imagery when you sit in your seats. And both of them had sort of similar concepts where with the U2 show, what you were seeing was sort of like the inside of a coliseum. And then at the very top of the sphere, you could sort of see, what they want you to think is the sky. And there's sort of fake birds flying around and there's some sort of visual elements there. And then with Dead & Company, they have essentially what looks like sort of the back scaffolding of a stage. As soon as they started to play, the stage basically opened and then you were in San Francisco in Haight-Ashbury. So They sort of give you a little bit of an idea when you sit down of being able to get a sense of the scale and just sort of how the sphere actually works versus just sort of turning it on when the acts start. So lots of Easter eggs and little things to see. But in terms of what we see with the actual audience experience, the seats are very comfortable. I feel like there's pretty good leg room. The one thing that I did notice that was different from sort of any venue that I'd ever been to is that, of course, because of the way that the seating is, like, it's quite steep. Like, I would be a little nervous to be...
it looked like it in pictures.
So it's quite steep. I was sitting on the 200 level. I sat at the 200 level a couple of times. And when you turn around and look up to the 300 and the 400 level, I mean, those seats are quite steep. And it might actually be the only critique that I have of the sphere is that I feel like it would, people are up there, they're maybe having mind-altering substances, they're drinking, and then they're like having to walk up incredibly steep stairs and also to be looking down. That was kind of like one of the things that I thought was a little bit surprising and I think is a little hard to see when you're buying the seats there. But yeah, I mean, once you sit down in your seat, you kind of just are taking in how big the screen is. It's a fully wraparound screen. It's hard to even, it's like being in a golf ball. That's kind of the way that I like to think about it. Whoa. And it's interesting because I feel like in the pictures and videos, you can't tell, but the screen really truly wraps around the entire side. So even if you're sitting on a side section, it's still going behind you. So from a visual perspective, there's no point where you feel like the screen is clipped or where you can't really take it in based on just how your peripheral vision works, which is really cool. It was definitely designed visually for you to be able to, no matter where you're seated, there's not a bad seat in the house or a seat where you can't see what's going on the screen.
It seems like we're leaning more towards events and experiences that have very customized and specialized setups for them. So in these shows, for example, at the U2 show and at the Dead & Co show, what differences did you pick up in how they used the available space?
Yeah, great question. So they use the sphere very differently, but if you also think about the bands and their identities and their fan base, it's also very different. You can't think about U2 and not think about Bono, right? He is a showman. He's the front man. Right. A lot of his concerts and their experiences have always been cutting edge, but they've always been very focused on him as a performer. And so the experience at the Sphere and a lot of the graphics and the way that they used the Sphere was to show him and to show other members of the band on the actual Sphere itself. And they invested less into sort of like art direction and graphic design and those types of things. And it was still a very cool experience. It was just more centered on the band. They also had a rotating stage that was designed like a record player. And so Bono really was walking around all over the stage and the band was rotating and the record player stage also was being lit from below. And so when you're sitting in the seats, there was a little bit more of a visual element that you could see from above on the actual stage. Whereas with Dead & Company, I mean, yes, they have a front man and yes, it is John Mayer, but it's not about that. It's not about him at all. And so they really took better advantage of the Sphere in terms of just the art direction. They did show the band, but it was mostly just like guitar close-ups or close-ups of the instruments and solos and that thing. Mm-hmm. They really sort of took into account sort of the more cultural and, artistic sort of vibes and values of the band and sort of their journey since, they began through today. And so they did a really kind of cutting edge mix of like drone shots and being in space and black holes. And one of the scenes that they had actually was them playing in front of the pyramids in Egypt. So they did a really cool mix of hyper realistic, like actual things that, we're acclimated to seeing, along with, of course, the typical kaleidoscope style trippy stuff that we think about with the Grateful Dead. So in terms of the experience with the Sphere, I really did feel like Dead & Co. took a lot more advantage of that. The other thing that Dead & Co. did that was really cool is they're known for having this section in the second set called Drums in Space, which is where there's a couple of people on the stage that are using a bunch of instruments and creating a really esoteric drums experience. And during this, they used the haptics on the seats. And I had been to the Sphere 4 times before I saw Dead & Company, and I had no idea that there was haptics on the seats. And to be sitting in a massive venue when they're doing this crazy drum solo for 30 minutes and to have the haptics on the seat work was super mind-blowing.
Wow.
To see the haptics and have it be a little bit more of a 4D experience really helped you connect with the music even more in that way.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like there's kind of endless possibilities in this type of venue for interactivity. Mm-hmm. We're seeing kind of across the board things like this pop up everywhere, maybe not as grandiose and expensive as the Sphere, but, for example, like a Van Gogh interactive exhibit where you're like walking through the paintings, or 4D movie theaters we reported on recently here. Do you think things like this, like very highly interactive experiences, are really paramount nowadays as the live event industry kind of transforms into a post-pandemic part of what it used to be?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the sad reality is it's getting harder and harder to woo people. We're seeing really big acts, Taylor Swift and Beyonce, they're bringing their concerts to movie theaters. Like, so much of live music experiences that you can buy tickets for, you can now, watch videos of on YouTube that someone's brought their professional camera and taken in, right? Like, it's really hard to really create those unique experiences and have experiences that you can't easily replicate in your house. And I think the Sphere is a great example of this. I do think that there is some concerns, of course, we go back to the Willy Wonka experience.
Oh, yeah, the AI generated Willy Wonka experience.
Yes. And that's such an amazing example of where it can go wrong. Mm-hmm. The possibilities for immersive experiences is large and people are really excited about them. But I think that something that could eventually sort of cap the industry or potentially even take it down is just sort of these types of experiences where it's definitely not what you've been promised. So that's something that I'm a little bit wary of. But I do think that the pandemic has really accelerated sort of the interest in having more of these experiences. Just as we are so accustomed to doing so many things online now, the in-person novelty is definitely helping get more butts in seats, as musicians say.
Yeah, and that novelty seems to be kind of a huge economic driver. Mm-hmm. The Sphere costs $2.3 billion to make. And, some places are not exactly having it. Like the mayor of London vetoed a Sphere because he was like, we don't want none of that here. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of data to show this, that millennials, Gen Z specifically, are traveling a ton for these kind of huge concert experiences. I mean, you yourself traveled from all the way over to the East Coast of the Sphere 6 times for this. So what do you think that means for the event industry as a whole, as traveling is kind of playing a huge part into all of these concerts, whether it be like a Taylor Swift or a Sphere?
Yeah, of course, we've always had strong sort of celebrity stands with the Beatles and other acts, and even Dead & Company and the Grateful Dead originally had a really big culture of people traveling around the country to see them. And so I think what we're seeing now is sort of circling back maybe to more of the groupie era of music and entertainment. And so that part of the sort of fandom and culture isn't surprising to me. I think it is cyclical. And we went through a little bit of a period where just touring wasn't as big or purchasing power was lower and sort of a couple of different things were colliding there. What I do think is interesting, though, is that when we think about festivals are a dime a dozen now. When we think about the Sphere, that's an experience that for now can't be easily replicated. And so there's definitely that novelty effect there. I also think that there's sort of been an increase in just cultural interest. And I think concerts and experiences go with that. My one concern with the Sphere and with experiences like this, especially in the music industry, is that it's not a one-size-fits-all. And a lot of people, like even Taylor Swift or Beyonce or Harry Styles or any of these other big acts, they wouldn't necessarily be a good fit for the Sphere. And so I do worry a little bit for the future of the Sphere, and then being able to get acts that are really able to take advantage of the technology and that makes sense sort of in that setting. So I'll be very curious to see who they announce after Dead & Company, who they get in there next, and if the excitement continues. It's hard to put into words what the experience is like, but if there's an act that comes that you like, even if you don't like them and you still want to have the experience, I would still recommend it. It really is truly technology in a way that you can't really experience anywhere else.
Well, thank you so much, Carly. It's been such a pleasure having you on.
Thank you.
And we'll hope to do this again real soon.
Sounds good.
All right, and that's going to do it for us today. Thanks for tuning into the Hustle Daily Show. We're a proud part of the HubSpot Podcast Network. Our editor today is Robert Hartwig, and our executive producer is Darren Clark. We've got a ton more tech and business coverage in our newsletter. If you're not subscribed, go get yourself signed up at thehustle.co/email, and we'll see you tomorrow.